I guess I'm just gonna put the camera on and start talking because I have no idea how this is gonna go. I've been planning this video for about a month now, and it didn't feel hard until right now. Until sitting here, pressing record, and opening my mouth. It didn't feel hard until right now. So I have a few comfort items just to help me get through this. I have my comfort hoodie. I am wearing my comfort sweatpants right now. I'm really bummy like right now just because that's the only thing that's going to make me feel comfortable. And I also have my comfort drink. I got just a buttered pecan iced coffee. Just thought I'd try it. And it's actually really good. Yeah, I'm comforted. And I got some tissues because I'm not going to try to play it cool. I know I'm going to be crying. As you can see by the title, today I'm going to be talking about my abortion story and my recovery. If you did not know, April is Abortion Recovery Awareness Month. And I've wanted to do this video for a really, really long time. Like even before this month, I wanted to do this video years and years ago. Just to talk about my story and the things that I went through so that I could potentially help someone else out there who's going through a similar situation. Yeah, I'm just gonna take my time with this, honestly. My intention for this video is not to stir up any negativity surrounding abortion. Even though this is a political conversation, the conversation that I want to have is more so focused on the emotional and the mental that comes along with having an abortion. So me telling my story, no matter how hard it may be, if me telling my story helps another young woman or another young person out there not have to go through the things that I went through or feel the things that I felt, then I'm doing my part. And yeah. Literally like doing this, like getting ready for this video did not seem as hard as sitting down and hitting record. I want to cry already, but I'm going to stay strong. I'm going to stay strong. I guess I'll just start from the beginning. Let me check my eyebrows because in the last video, nobody wanted to tell me the bitches were off, okay? I think like this eyebrow was like thick, okay? Like, child, thick eyebrow, okay? And this one was over here chilling, slayed, real slanted. But this one over here, I don't know, nobody stopped me before I went out the house. I was brushing that day, but that's not the point. Just wanted to make sure my eyebrows were good because y'all not gonna clown me. And if you did see, and I put it in there, I left it. Editing that video, I saw it and I said, damn girl, your eyebrows fucked up. But I left it in there. So if you want to go back and watch it now and then look at my eyebrow, but I wasn't going to say anything while posting it because then everybody was just going to look at my eyebrow and not pay attention to the video. But if you already watched it and you want to go back and make fun of my eyebrow, feel free because I look good today. And I don't look like that all the time. I had to say that PSA. I do not look like that all the time. On January 10th, 2018, I had an abortion. Growing up, I was a hopeless romantic, to say the least. I thought I was going to marry my high school sweetheart, have kids, white picket fence, all that good stuff. I really did. And while I have always been pro-choice, I never thought getting an abortion was something that I would personally do. Until I was faced with, that situation and I had to make that tough decision. And to this day, I think that was, to this day, that was the toughest decision that I ever had to make. And 4 years later, I do not regret my decision. I made the right decision for me and, for my partner at the time. Um, um, but then in late 2017, I got hit with a really big curveball. Clearly, I was having sex, but no. I was taking birth control pills at the time that I got pregnant, and I had already struggled with, emotional imbalances. I had already struggled with, anxiety and depression prior to being on birth control. But when I became sexually active, it was a necessity. Um, to be quite honest, I was never good at taking my birth control all the time. Even now when I'm taking my vitamins every morning, I forget most days. Um, and the partner that I was with at the time, we weren't always safe. It was very naive for us to not be safe every single time. 1 plus 1 equals 2, and I think with me not being with me not taking my birth control, the way that I should have, and us together not being safe, you can kind of see how we got to the predicament that we were in. And I remember finding out it was surreal. It was honestly like an out of body experience. Of course, I missed my period. I just decided to take a test. I took the test on my own. I took the test on my own because I wanted to be sure before I went and told, my partner or anybody else. I didn't want to believe it, of course. I'm 20 years old, and now I'm pregnant with one of the first people that, I'm having sex with. It's safe to say I had no idea what to do. And my mother and I at the time were going through some things. So it wasn't the easiest to talk to her in that moment. And that's my fault. That's just a decision that I made. Despite what we were going through, I do regret not telling my mom as soon as I found out. After I found out that I was pregnant, I told 2 close friends at the time. And for me, that was the easiest part. The hardest part was figuring out how to tell my partner, because I felt like I fucked up. And if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, please do not feel like you are the only one at fault. You cannot get pregnant alone. They didn't make me feel like I was solely the fuck up. I felt like I was just the fuck up. So it was really hard to figure out a way to tell that person, because he was my best friend, along with being my partner at the time. And we had a really long and strenuous history. And I was at a really tough place in my life where I was losing a lot of things that meant a lot to me at that time. I already wasn't in my best place mentally before I got pregnant. And so getting pregnant was honestly the last straw that kind of broke me. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be the first person to tell my partner that I was pregnant, because one of the close friends decided that it was their place That person and I are no longer friends. But yeah, so that was taken away from me, along with so many other things at the time. And so when they found out, they came to me. He wasn't angry. He was honestly more worried than anything. Our next point was, to figure out what to do. And while I thought that, us figuring out what our next steps were was something that we were going to talk about and decide together, the decision was solely on me. My partner at the time, he gave me his reason for not wanting to have a baby, but ultimately, in his words, it was up to me. It wasn't as easy as you might have thought. You're probably thinking, oh, she's 20, she's in college, she probably doesn't have her life together. And you're right, I didn't. I did not have my life together whatsoever. I honestly don't think it would have been fair to bring a child into the situation that myself and my partner were in at that time. It was a tough decision because a part of me wanted it was a tough decision because a part of me wanted to keep the baby, and I had to really fight with myself to think about what was the right decision, because sometimes what you want is not always what you need. And because I was at a point in my life where I was losing so much, I was chasing my dreams, and I was chasing these dreams in college, and they, to say the least, things weren't working out. Part of me thought that keeping this baby gave me some sort of control over my life, because I felt like outside of this situation, I had lost control of my life. And I was willing to do anything to get some kind of control back. I thought long and hard about what the right decision would be. And ultimately, I made this decision for myself. But I think what led me to the decision to get an abortion was thinking about my partner at that time. Neither of us were ready to have a kid, and all that it meant, whether it was financially, emotionally, mentally, we weren't ready. We weren't ready separately, and we weren't ready together. And I couldn't do that to him. I couldn't force him to uproot his life, and I couldn't force him to uproot his life and just like that become a parent, just because I wanted a selfish moment. And I wanted a selfish moment really, really bad. I wanted a selfish moment because I could not force this man to do a complete 180 with his life. I couldn't expect him to be the kind of parent that I had always hoped for, for my children. because we were 20 years old. Like, it just wouldn't have been fair to either one of us. So I made the decision to get an abortion because neither of us were ready. And I didn't think we were going to get ready. Even though I wanted a selfish moment, that selfish moment would have turned into a lifetime, an entire child. That child's lifetime would have been a selfish moment. And we were not ready to take care of a child in any way, shape, or form. I knew the way that I wanted to raise children, I wasn't going to be able to do that at 20 years old. Hell, I'm not even able to do that at 24 years old. But, and as more time goes on and I get older and I get wiser, I'll be ready when I'm ready. Making the decision to have an abortion was really, really tough. And the only thing that I would change about my situation was having more support. I had very little support, and that is the honest truth. I didn't tell my mother, when I had found out, or even when I had made the decision to get an abortion. I was honestly trying to figure out how to get an abortion without her knowing. And I did tell my advisor at the time, because she and I were really close, and she was very supportive. She was very supportive in me telling her, everything along the way. All right. After I told my advisor, I was pretty much all set to have the abortion. I had made an appointment and I was nervous and I wasn't ready, but I prepared myself honestly for the worst. I had heard horror stories about abortions and I did not want to be one of those stories. So I remember on the way to Planned Parenthood, I cried the entire way there. I cried the entire way there because ooh. I don't regret this decision. It's sad having to relive this, honestly. It's really sad having to relive this situation after I have talked and talked and talked and talked about it with my family and my friends and my therapists. It's really hard having to relive this, but the reason I'm doing this is because when I was going through this and I felt like I had nobody and I was alone, I wished and I prayed that I would get some kind of message for me that I wasn't alone. So if this message can be that for anybody, I've done my part and I'm living in my purpose. Even if you don't know me, even if you just somehow came across this video, you are not alone. I am here for you. I cried the entire way there because I was making a really tough decision. And, I didn't have my mom. And I know talking to my mom would have made me feel so much better. Because of the situations that I was dealing with outside of the abortion and the pregnancy altogether, my mom and I weren't talking as much as we normally would. I didn't want to make her angry. I didn't want her to be upset with me because it was a mistake. It was an honest to goodness mistake. And again, I'm the type of person where if I make a mistake, I usually try to clean it up by myself. But this was a mistake that I could not get through alone. I walked into Planned Parenthood alone. I sat in the waiting room and my name was called. So I went, and honestly just felt like any other doctor's office. Cold, like just uncomfortable. So they called my name back, and the nurse, she did an ultrasound. I was able to choose between a medication or a surgical abortion. And I honestly thought that the medication abortion was the better route because, it was less invasive, probably less recovery time. And mind you, they didn't tell me much about the difference. But I chose to do the medication abortion, which is where you take 2 pills. The first one you take in the doctor's office, and the second one you have up to 72 hours to take. I took that alone as well. I took the initial pill in the doctor's office, and then I went back to campus. And I had waited the 72 hours, and I took the second pill. And I don't know what I expected, but what actually happened was a nightmare. And I'm not exaggerating. It was a nightmare. I was at my school's apartment housing at the time, and it was over winter break. So I had the luxury of being alone, or at least I thought it was a luxury. I should not have been alone. There's cramping, and then there is feeling like your organs are being forced through a meat grinder. That might have been a bit too much. To be honest, I thought I was going to die. I was terrified. It started off as light cramping, and then it got unbearable. There was the cramping, there was vomiting, there was... Once everything was finished, the pain just stopped. And I didn't really know what to expect with the medication abortion. Honestly just felt like they were reading off a script to me. They're like, okay, you're gonna take this one here. You have 3 days to take this one. And then you should be fine. I remember them telling me that I should be fine. After me taking the second pill, and all the pain had stopped, I thought I was gonna be okay. I got up the next day, probably was a little sore, could walk fine, move around fine. So I felt good. I felt good to go to like my clinicals and things like that. I felt okay. I was like, okay, this is behind me now. Let me move on with my life. Or at least I tried to. Some classes have started back, and I felt good. And I was moving around like normal, going to class. And then that's when the bleeding started. Now, if I had known that I was going to be bleeding the way that I was, I would have sat my ass down for a week, 2 weeks, or anything. But I had no idea that this was something that was going to happen to me. I felt like somebody had sliced my gut open and I was pouring blood. Like the way that I was bleeding, it was not humanly possible for me to be standing up. It was not humanly possible for me to be alive, even the way that I was bleeding. There was It was streaming and there were blood clots. So I was losing massive amounts of blood just trying to go to class. I remember having to go to the hospital 2 times. The first time I was on my way to class and I felt like there was a massive blood clot trying to come out. And when I went to the bathroom, it was the clot along with like a pool of blood. I got myself together enough to tell my advisor that what was happening, and she sent me to the school's health clinic, the health center. And so I had did a test there, and I told them what happened, and they were like, "Oh, it's pretty normal." So I thought it was pretty fucking normal. Like, it was okay for me to get up and like go around and do the things that I was doing. No one ever told me to sit down. Like, no one told me anything. I went back to my apartment. My roommate was there. One of my roommates who I had told initially when I found out that I was pregnant, she took me to the hospital. I asked her to take me just because, even though they were like, "Oh, that's normal," it didn't feel normal. So I asked her to take me to the hospital, which she did. And again, I was very vague with the reason that I needed to go. And just because I wasn't really talking to many people about what I was going through. And that was a choice that I made. She took me to the hospital. I remember telling my partner, I said, "Hey, this is what's happened today. I'm in the hospital." It had been hours at this point. I was still bleeding. I had been hooked up to IVs. I was probably there for a few hours. They were just trying to get the bleeding under control. And then they just sent me home the same day. So I thought I was okay. Went back to my apartment and just rested. And maybe a few days after that, I was going to work. I worked at Starbucks at the time on campus, and it was like a weekend, I think, because nobody was in class. And we're like, yeah, there were no classes, and there weren't many people around, so I think it was like a weekend. And I went to work, and I took the shuttle up to the North Campus. And before I even got to work, by the time I got like off the shuttle, I could feel more blood clots, and I could feel like I'm not prepared for this. So I went into work, immediately went to the bathroom, and again, the same thing happened. Blood clots coming out with pools of blood. Got myself together enough to let my manager know. I'm like, yeah, I have to go home. I told them as much as I could without actually telling them what was really going on. I was like, I am not going to make it through this day. I'm trying to tell you, I'm not going to make it. So I was on my way to go back home. And literally the shuttle was like across the street from my job. So I get back to the shuttle. I'm waiting for the shuttle, and I start to feel another blood clot. So I go into the bathroom that is in this building behind the bus stop. I go into the bathroom and I sit on the toilet. And as I'm sitting on the toilet, I start to feel lightheaded. I start to like feel dizzy. And I said, "Oh no, this is not good." So I put my head between my legs, thinking that was gonna help me feel better. I was like, so as I did that, I kept talking to myself, and it kept getting worse. I put my head between my legs, and it got worse. I put my head between my legs as I'm in the bathroom. I kept talking to myself, and I kept saying, "I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out." I had never passed out in my life. But in that moment, I knew I was not going to be able to be conscious for much longer. And it was really, really scary. I called my roommate. I called one of my roommates. I thought, I just need to get back to my room and lay in my bed and rest. I asked her, I'm like, "Can you please come get me? I'm waiting for the shuttle at work, but I'm not going to make it. I'm going to pass out on the bus if you can't come get me." She was able to come get me, but I needed someone to be there sooner. So I called my other friend who lived on North Campus because she was going to be able to get to me sooner. And as I'm like sitting there, I'm talking to her. I'm like, hey, like, are you in your room? Are you on North Campus? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, I need you to come to this place, da 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 da. Come into the bathroom. I told her, I said, if I'm passed out, I said, I'm in the second stall. If you call my name and I don't respond, it's because I'm passed out. I told her what was happening, and I told her, I said, I'm going to pass out in the next couple of minutes, because I honestly felt like I was fighting to keep myself conscious, and I didn't have a lot of fight left. I was able to be conscious when she got there. I was exposed. I was exposed. Pants were around my ankles. Blood was everywhere. And I was still in the toilet, and she got me out of the stall, and they tried to feed me, splash water on my face, and then right behind that, my other friend showed up. She was here to take me to the to my room. She was here to take me back to my room, but at this point, there was no going back to my room. They were splashing water on my face, trying to get me to eat. I think she tried to feed me like a rice bowl or something like that. I took one bite, and I don't even think I was able to swallow it before I projectile vomited all over the entire fucking bathroom. All I remember really is going in and out. It just felt like I was going to sleep, but I wasn't trying to go to sleep. I just remember going in and out and them like screaming, like shaking me, things like that. And thank God my one friend on her way to come get me, she hit the 911 for our school, and they were like really, really close behind. They had an ambulance, and I remember seeing them come in. I think I was laying on the floor at this time, blood and vomit everywhere. I remember like faintly seeing them come in, and then I woke up and I was inside the ambulance. And that's when I decided to call my mom. because I thought I was gonna die. I'm not here to shame myself. That's when I decided to call my mom, when I was in the back of the ambulance going to the hospital for the second time in 1 week, because I had no idea what was going on with my body. And you can imagine how confused and afraid she was for my life. Imagine how afraid I was for my life. And then my mom. I sat in the waiting room over an hour. My pants had been cut, so I didn't have any pants. I was in the waiting room with a blanket wrapped around my legs in the wheelchair, still bleeding. I was sitting there for over an hour before I went to the back and was able to see. Same thing happened when they, had me hooked up to IVs and things like that, just to get me okay enough to go home. This time though, I was told to rest and told to give my body a break. It's ridiculous that I had to be in the hospital twice, 1 week, for somebody actually to tell me how to recover from this and how to take care of myself after this. And this is still only the physical portion. With my mom, my godmom there at the time, I felt a lot more safe, a lot more comfortable. I ended up going back to school, but I was like on strict orders to rest, and I couldn't go to class for like a few days. So for those few days that I was like on strict rest, I Still wasn't taking care of myself. Now all I had was time to sit and think about what I had done to my body. Person who already suffers from anxiety and depression, this was a really, really, really tough situation to sit with. And then to have made the decision to do it, go through with it, and then have my body completely turn on me for a decision that I made, it was tough. I got to a really, really dark place. Even still, with dealing with a lot of things that I deal with, that was one of the darkest times in my life. I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't eating. I wasn't going to class. I wasn't showing up to any of my responsibilities. I kind of gave up on life, and I could not look at myself in the mirror. Like, not figuratively, literally, I could not look at myself in the mirror. I would not look at myself because I was that depressed. And even though I felt like I had made the right decision, I didn't know how to live with that. I didn't know how to move on. Yeah, I'm not gonna say and tell you that it gets easier. Your life changes. You learn how to live a different life. Things never really go back to normal. I still think about it from time to time, like, it still crosses my mind. I've written letters to my unborn child, plenty of them, just to apologize and pray and just to help God get some of those feelings out, because I learned that, like, living in that sadness and festering those emotions did not help me. I started to think I was a terrible person. I started to think all these negative things, and that's not true. Even if you are faced with this situation and you are forced to make this decision, as long as you make the right decision for you in that moment, no one can ever tell you what you did was wrong, or what you did was terrible, or that you're a bad person for what you did. Nobody can tell you that, because they don't have to live it. If you're thinking about putting your opinions or whatnot in the comments and they're not so nice, save yourself the curse out, because I'm really not the one. Save yourself the curse out, because it won't be pretty. It won't be pretty. So if you're sitting there on the other side of this and you're like judging me real hard, go find something to do. Go find something to do. It took a really long time for me to come out of that. And really, one of the main things that actually helped me was prayer. And I know that God doesn't make mistakes, but I do. And getting pregnant was a mistake on me, not God. I've prayed about it. I've repented. I've asked for forgiveness, of course. I asked for, forgiveness from myself, because that was the only way that I was going to be able to continue to live my life, is if I forgave myself for, for something that, like I said, I never thought that I would do this. And for putting my mother through so many things, for putting my body through so many things, I needed to forgive myself in order to move on and live. Not for anybody but myself. And prayer was really one of the only things that got me to this point where I can sit here in front of my phone and talk about this now, because like I said, I've wanted to do this video for so long, but it just never felt like the right time, or I never really knew how to tell my story. And, I didn't have the right support at that time. And if anybody is out there listening and anybody can relate to anything that I'm saying, I love you. and you are not alone. If you know anyone or if you yourself are going through your abortion recovery, there's no time frame. There's no time frame. You learn how to live a new life. You learn how to keep going, and you find new passions, and you find new ways of living your life. You find new ways of living your life, and you find new passions, and you find a new purpose. Even at a point where I thought, that child was going to be my purpose, it would not have been my purpose. If you know anyone who's going through this, or you yourself are going through this, please, please, please talk to someone. If you feel like there's no one listening, come back and watch this video. Leave a comment. DM me on Instagram or anywhere. I do not care. Like, if you feel like there's nobody to talk to, spam me. Spam my DMs on Instagram, TikTok, over here, wherever you want to do that. If you feel like you have nobody to talk to, come back here and talk to me. There is strength in numbers. And I really do wish that at the time when I was going through this, I let more people in to what I was going through, because it might have just made it that much easier. The day that I am posting this is the final day of April 30th, which is also the final day of Abortion Recovery Awareness Month. I'm going to do my best to find some resources and things for you guys to reach out to. Again, if you guys are going through this or going through anything tough, really, like, please, please, please talk to someone. Write it down. Do whatever it is you have to do, because living with that self-guilt and that regret and things like that, it's not okay. It's not okay. You don't deserve that. People make mistakes every single day. It doesn't make you a terrible person. It makes you human. It makes you human. Being human means you have flaws. If you watched up until this point, I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you for listening to my story. And I hope you have someone out there to listen to you. And again, if you don't, come on right back here. Come right back here. I'm always here. I love you guys so much. Bye.